Our next guest is both head of the emergency room in St. Paul's Hospital and an internationally published best-selling author. One of his books is the best-selling book, Pandemic. He could keep us equally captivated speaking about either topic, but tonight he's going to do something else. He's going to speak about the blessings and challenges of dual careers. Please welcome Daniel Kalla.
It's truly an honor to be here. And you know, wherever I speak, I always get asked the same question. Sometimes it's the only question, and it's where do I find the time? So tonight I thought I would discuss a little bit about managing the dual career. And hopefully I'll inspire you guys a little on the way. But you're a big audience, you're an impressive audience, but you're not an intimidating audience, because I once spoke at Psychiatric Grand Rounds, and I was asked to speak there, and when I got there, this was the topic of my talk. It was the misportrayal of psychiatrists in fiction. And my new book at the time, Rage Therapy, was littered with unbalanced personality disordered psychiatrists, the villains and the heroes. And I hadn't spoken for 2 minutes when someone in the audience waved his hand like he was trying to land a plane. I just couldn't ignore him. And finally I pointed to him and he said, "I read your book." And there was this malignant pause. And he said, "You portray all psychiatrists as unbalanced and inappropriate. None have any personal boundaries, and all have completely screwed up relationships with their patients, their friends, and even their own families." And there was another agonizing pause, and I just melted into the stage. But then he shrugged and he said, "You pretty much nailed us." So it was the best icebreaker. So let's start with a message from God. If you do the work you love and the work that fulfills you, the rest will come. And I truly believe that the reason I was able to be so financially successful is because my focus has never ever for 1 minute been the money. Oh, Oprah, clearly you're not an emerge doc or a semi-anonymous writer, but I think the message is valid. You should follow your passion and maybe the money will follow. And it's not so much that I'm a narcissist, although to be honest I kind of am, but it's hard not to talk about the dual career without discussing my own personal experience. I've worked as an ER physician for 20 years, but I've wanted to be a writer since first grade. And in the last 10 years, I've been lucky enough to combine my two passions, medicine and creative writing. In my medical thriller mysteries, I've written about everything from the bioterrorism, big pharma conspiracies, mad cow disease gone wild, to the pitfalls of DNA evidence. And in my latest historical trilogy, I wrote about a secular German-Jewish doctor who escapes with his family from Nazi Germany to Shanghai, only to discover a whole new world of danger and persecution there. So I guess it's no wonder that the Globe and Mail once said of me, "Kalla's like a Chicken Little with an MD." But how does someone really know if he or she is suited for a dual career? It involves a lot of juggling, but is it right for you? For those of you considering a second career, realize you may have a huge leg up already. Many of you are well-educated and high achievers, and most of you know what it means to work very hard in your current career. Those skills would serve you just as well in a second, third, or even fourth career. So what's stopping you? Whether it's writing the great Canadian novel or opening up that adorable French bistro, or starting your own one-man, all-drag musical review, which I think is a dream among many of us, but it usually boils down to 4 words, 4 little words that give people carte blanche to turn their back on their goals and ambitions. Well, 5 if you include the expletive. I don't have time. Can't tell you how many times I've heard that excuse. And I realize that many of you are so overwhelmed with work, with family, financial crises, school commitments, et cetera, that you barely have time to breathe, let alone consider pursuing a lifelong dream. But I still think too many people use it as an excuse. If you prioritize, you can usually make the time. But far be it from me to judge. And I think this next video is a little demonstration of why none of us should judge too quickly.
Hey, kid. You got to go down. Come on.
Trust me, you don't have to be disciplined or even that efficient to manage a dual career. No one who knows me would mistake me for one of those annoyingly ultra-efficient types. If I have time on my hands, I can make a shave or a shower an all-day ordeal. I can be an Olympic-level procrastinator. I have papers from the previous millennium sitting in my inbox. My garage is beyond description. It's possible Jimmy Hoffa's remains are somewhere at the back of them. But my advantage is my drive. When I sink my teeth into something, I do so with a single-mindedness that borders on obsession. When I'm writing a new novel, I cut back at least on all other pastimes. I stop binge watching TV. I stop the endless self-aggrandizing look-at-me Facebook posts. And perhaps most tragically, I can no longer keep up with the Kardashians. But I have never once felt that I was making a sacrifice because I am passionate about my writing. It's still my favorite hobby and my favorite pastime. Of course, when it comes to writing, having a dual career, I have a huge advantage over most people with 9-to-5 jobs. As an emerged physician, I'm a shift worker, and while the workload can be intense, the hours are not long compared to most of yours, and I often have free time in the midweek when the kids are in school, etc., to focus on my writing. I'm also lucky that I get to flex both sides of my brain in my two careers. Medicine is traditionally considered a left brain function, focusing on science and logic, whereas writing is usually viewed as a right brain activity, relying on imagination and creativity. This is obviously a gross simplification. Working in the ER often requires a ton of imagination and creativity. Hell, I've made up more anatomy and physiology teaching medical students than I put into my fiction. But for me, pursuing the two such diverse interests help to keep both careers exciting. One feeds off the other. My work in the ER, especially meeting new people and being introduced to their interesting lives, fuels my imagination and creativity. And my writing offers the perfect outlet to relax me after a long or stressful shift. But some people ask, do my worlds collide? One quick true story. I do nowadays see more often people who have read my books in the ER, but the first person who did so was crazy. She was one of our frequent flyers, a lovely woman with a psychiatric disorder. And as soon as she saw me, she said, "Dr. Kalla, I loved your book, Pandemic." And then she proceeded to tell me she had stopped taking her medicines and she launched into a series of bizarre delusions and wacky hallucinations. And later, when I was referring to the psychiatrist, I told him that while the poor lady was quite psychotic, she did have one wonderfully lucid and insightful moment. And there are other times when my two worlds just seem to sync perfectly, when the medicine inspires the writing and vice versa. You know, when it comes to chasing your ambitions, there's no shortage of people who are willing to tell you all the reasons why failure is inevitable, and sometimes it is. But I think it's so sad so many people find excuses never to try in the first place. I'm not advocating a dual career for everyone. Sometimes it's truly impractical, and some people would find the diametrical tug of two jobs too stressful or counterproductive. But for those of you willing to take the plunge, the rewards, and believe me, I'm not speaking in terms of dollars and cents, can be immense. For me, pursuing a second career has turned out to be one of the best choices I've ever made. Maybe one day I'll have to choose between the two, or the decision will be made for me. But right now, my life is incalculably richer for being a doctor and a writer. And I'm told every lecture needs a summary slide, so here's mine. These are my tips for pursuing a dual career. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Give yourself time to succeed. Capitalize on your expertise. Do your homework. Follow your passion, not your wallet, and know when to walk away. Speaking of walking away, thank you very much.